127 teams to go in my 131 team preview prediction series. And we're off with Mississippi State as we're starting with the SEC Conference, going down power ranking style. Mississippi State, this is one of the premier passing attacks in all of college football. They don't really run the ball a lot because of Mike Leach's air raid attack. And it's a pretty solid defensive team as well. Starkville is also a very, very hard place to play. Mississippi State has had some good seasons, but people in Starkville are starting to expect a little bit more. So can Mississippi State take that next step towards maybe an SEC division title, or will Mississippi State kind of stay or fall back a little bit from what the fans want? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel. Hey, I'm doing all 131 teams, which means, yeah, I'm predicting your favorite team. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And Mississippi State fans, this goes out to you. You're going to know this team a lot better than me. So if you feel like I missed something and you want something to add to the video, leave it in the comment section down below. That would be greatly appreciated. So Mississippi State, let's talk about them. What did they do under head coach Mike Leach last year? Well, first of all, this is the 10th ranked team in my SEC preseason power rankings. We've already done the first 4 teams before it. Now we're getting into what I believe is the SEC top 10. The SEC probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest conference to power rank. And Mississippi State right here at number 10, I think is a good solid spot. So what did they do last year? 7-6, 4-4 in conference. Pretty good season for Mississippi State. Let me tell you a little bit about last season. 441 yards per game. Let's see. Yep, 441 yards per game, around 29 points per game. So really good offense. And as I said, one of the best passing attacks in the nation. 378 yards a game last year. On the defensive end, this was a good football team. They were 4th in the SEC in yards allowed with 331. They defended the pass quite well. Their pass defense could use a little work. 230 yards allowed last year, only 101 yards allowed on the ground. But still, when you're 4th in the SEC in defensive yards allowed, you're doing something right. Also allowed 25 points per game last year, so maybe could use some slight improvement, especially in terms of your pass defense. But all in all, this is a very, very solid football team. Let's take a look at some of the talent that they are losing and gaining under head coach Mike Leach, offensive coordinator Steve Spurrier, defensive coordinator Zach Arnett. Omni Wells was a guy that, was just kind of there, only had 2 catches for 43 yards last year. Not really a huge part to this team. And he has since transferred out, wants to go be a bigger part somewhere else. So it was just another name I could put on the board. As for names that do matter on the board, I guess matter more than a guy like Omni Wells. In terms of production-wise, Malachi Polk was phenomenal last year. Was by far Will Rogers' favorite target. Had 105 catches for 1,046 yards, 9 touchdowns as well. And Malik Heath, 34 catches, 442 yards, and 5 touchdowns. A pretty good season as well. Both of those guys gone off this team, and Malik Heath in the transfer portal has since found a new home. Offensive lineman Charles Cross, gone to the NFL draft. We know what a big part he was to this offensive line. Going to have to replace him. Can't do it with Calvin McMillan, though. He's also gone. You lose the defensive lineman. Linebacker Aaron Brule is a pretty big loss as well, as is defensive back Martin Emerson and Fred Peters. Both of those guys were absolutely huge parts to this defense. So Mississippi State losing some guys. Definitely losing some guys, but it's not the worst report of talent lost, right? There are still some very nice pieces on this Mississippi State team, including quarterback Will Rogers, who lit it up last year. 4,739 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The guy was fantastic. When you look at the running backs, Dylan Johnson, Joquavius Marks are the 2 leading running backs from last year. They both return to play for Mike Leach and Mississippi State. Both good for around 400, 450 yards. Johnson had 4 touchdowns, while Marks had 6 touchdowns on the ground. When you look at the wide receiver group, still a lot of talent. Jaden Wally, the second leading receiver from last year, with 628 yards, 6 touchdowns, is coming back. You also got guys like Austin Williams, Rara Thomas, and then a transfer over from, I believe, Northwestern and Jordan Mosley. So Some very good talent still in that wide receiver room. On the defensive side, there's also still some guys there that could keep up, maybe even improve this defense from last year. Randy Charlton, Nathan Pickering on the defensive line. You return your top 2 tacklers in Jet Johnson and Nathaniel Watson, both of them over 80 tackles. Watson having 5 sacks as well. And then on the defensive back side of thing, you still got some guys that, well, they're definitely going to have to step up, defend a little bit more passes. But when you look at a guy like Emmanuel Forbes that had 5 passes defended, 3 interceptions, and was your fourth leading tackler last year, you're doing something right bringing him back. Emmanuel Forbes should be a big part, as should Marcus Banks and Jalen Green in the secondary. Let's look at this Mississippi State schedule now. So here you go. Here's the Mississippi State schedule. We'll go through non-conference games first, then we'll get into conference games. You got home game against Memphis. We all know what happened in the Memphis game last year. There was some controversy that happened as well. But Memphis should still be a solid football team, so not a game Mississippi State should take lightly. Then you go on the road and play Arizona. Not really a team that a lot of people are worried about when you see Arizona on the schedule, but it is on the road, so you always have to be careful of those road games. Also, home game against Bowling Green, and way later down the line, a home game against East Tennessee State to end the non-conference slate. They could probably easily go 4-0 through those games, although they could drop one of them, and more likely not it'd be to Memphis, and we'll look at what I predict here in a little bit. In terms of conference games, this is a very hard conference slate. Every single team, except one of them, which is Auburn, because we've already done Auburn. Remember, we're doing this power ranking style. I have not done a video on yet, which means that they are ahead of Mississippi State in the power rankings. So, this is a very, very interesting SEC schedule. And let me go ahead and flash my percentages up on the board, and then we can talk about it. So, in case you guys haven't watched one of my videos yet, this is the first video of mine you're watching. I'm doing a percentage-based outlook instead of predicting game by game to sort of help better project the team's record. And percentages are of my opinion. So, when you look at games in red, yeah, probably not going to win the game. Games in orange, you know, you're still probably not going to win, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50/big upset potential games. Yellow-green are games that you probably should win, but again, it's college football, upsets can happen. And then games in green, you're probably going to end up winning the game. So you got 2 games in green. That's against Bowling Green and East Tennessee State. Should be able to win both of those 2 games. In fact, they should be highly favored, although Bowling Green beat Minnesota last year. So I guess there's something, but I don't really see Mississippi State losing to Bowling Green this year, so should be able to get that win. Then you got Memphis at home week 1. We all know what happened in the Memphis game last year with the controversy and the play. And yep. So for Mississippi State, don't take that Memphis team lightly, but they should still be the favorites in Starkville at home. And then that road game against Arizona. Again, you are the better team than Arizona, but it is a road game against a Power 5 opponent. So I'd just be a little cautious. Should be able to come out of there with a W. So should be able to come out of those 4 games 4-0. Now, when you get into the SEC slate of things, there is no game in yellow-green. There is no game in green. Mississippi State is going to have to fight for every single win they get in SEC play. Because again, every team but one of them we haven't done a video on, which means they are ahead of Mississippi State in my power rankings. You got road games against LSU, Kentucky, Alabama, and Ole Miss. And you see 3 of those road games in orange. They're the only 3 games in orange on the schedule, in my opinion, against Kentucky, Alabama, and Ole Miss. That road game against LSU is in yellow. Probably still, in my opinion, give the slight edge to LSU. But again, if Mississippi State goes in there and wins that game, it's not going to be a huge surprise to me. As for the Kentucky, Alabama, Ole Miss games, look, they're just going to be really hard games. These are 3 of probably top 5. These are 3 of the top 5 teams in the SEC, in my opinion. Just spoiled a little bit of my power rankings, but that's okay. But those are easily 3 of the better teams in the SEC. In fact, I think they probably have the top 5, 6, maybe 7 teams in the SEC on this schedule. When you look at games also at home against Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, I see Mississippi State pulling off at least one upset this year. I really do. At least one upset they're going to get here for Mississippi State, whether that be a home win against Georgia, home win against A&M, home win against Arkansas. It really really just depends on how Mississippi State plays that night, but also how loud that crowd gets, because Starkville can be very, very loud. But there are also some games that you would like to have at home. Like, you want to have to play Auburn at home. You don't want to go to Jordan-Hare. You want Arkansas at home. They are probably the better team, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Arkansas favored in that game, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Mississippi State favored in that game as well. So there are just a lot of tricky games on this schedule, especially in SEC play for Mississippi State. And I know Mississippi State fans are going to want more than what I'm predicting, but I think the Bulldogs this year are in for another 6-6 campaign. I think this team overall is a better team than their 6-6 record is going to indicate at the end of the season. But this is just a really hard schedule. I mean, having to play Georgia, Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Arkansas in a year where those may very well be the 6 best teams in the SEC, it's going to be a very, very hard schedule for Mississippi State to go through and find some wins. They're going to have to grind. They're going to have to fight for every game they play this year in conference play. And I just don't see them winning as many as people in Starkville would like. So I got them as 6-6. However, I could see this team as high as 8-4. Because yes, it's college football. Upsets happen. And this is one of the best passing attacks in college football. Also, if they can find a solid enough running game, maybe 80 yards a game, and that defense can be as good, if not better, than last year's, you're going to have a good recipe for success. But overall, I see the Mississippi State Bulldogs going 6-6 in 2022. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Also, again, I'm predicting all 131 teams, so if your favorite team was Mississippi State and I haven't done them yet, make sure you ring the bell so you know when I upload. Well, on top of that, remember to play hard, tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.